Wolverine's sex appeal in popular culture is amplified by his rugged charm and complex romantic entanglements. His relationships with characters like Jean Grey and Mariko Yashida showcase his vulnerability and deep emotional connections, contrasting with his tough exterior and regenerative powers. Hugh Jackman's portrayal in the X-Men films further cemented Wolverine's appeal, portraying him as both fierce and tender-hearted, which resonated with audiences. This blend of physical prowess, emotional depth, and compelling relationships has made Wolverine a captivating and enduring figure, admired for more than just his adamantium claws and healing factor. The story starts when Wolverine was hot on the trail of the Breeze, who was shadowing him. When it came to dealing with the Breeze, Wolverine knew it was wise not to go solo. He waited for backup, keeping a close watch on the Wendigo to ensure it didn't stumble upon any unsuspecting campers. However, things didn't go as planned. The Wendigo found a campsite and pounced on a woman. Wolverine sprang into action to rescue her, but then something unexpected occurred. He caught her scent and quipped, well, if it ain't a furball. Remember me? Don't fret, I'm not here to spoil your dinner. He flashed a grin and continued, but let's be clear, what you're holding ain't supper, it's bait. Isn't that right, She-Hulk? The woman transformed into She-Hulk with playful annoyance. Geez, way to ruin my grand entrance. So, what brings you here? She-Hulk threw a punch at the Wendigo. Did S.H.I.E.L.D. send you this time? Wolverine shook his head. Nope, got the call straight from pal of mine, an Indian Sarsi. She-Hulk raised an eyebrow. So, are you just gonna stand there or join the party? Wolverine unsheathed his claws and grinned. Lady, I thought you'd never ask. With that, they leaped into battle against the Wendigo. As they fought, the Wendigo tossed them aside, and She-Hulk exclaimed, "Ooh, nearly gave me a concussion. That skull of yours is solid." Wolverine replied, "It's adamantium, darling. Hardest substance on Earth. Every bone in my body's laced with it." She-Hulk, surprised, asked, "Really, every bone?" Before she could continue, the Wendigo attacked, slashing her stomach. She collapsed, blood dripping. While Wolverine continued the fight, She-Hulk woke up, her Jennifer Walters persona in control. Wolverine fought in the background as Jennifer berated She-Hulk for her choices. Seriously, what are you doing with your life? We had a good thing going at the law firm, cool cases, good friends. Now you're tossing it all away for this superhero gig? She-Hulk snapped back, "Stop it. Stop talking like we're two different people. We're not." "Emien Walters." Jennifer replied sarcastically, "Well, duh. But right now, you're She-Hulk. And guess what? You've got a healing factor. Get up, you're fine." She-Hulk looked down, realizing her body had healed itself, then quickly rejoined the battle alongside Wolverine. She pushed the Wendigo back and assured Wolverine, "I'm okay. I've got a healing factor." Wolverine chuckled. "Join the club. Problem is, so does our big, bad friend." As they continued the fight, Wolverine asked She-Hulk, "Darling, how were you planning to handle this guy?" They battled on, struggling against the relentless Wendigo. Wolverine mused, "This one's tough. Might take a while." Despite being beaten down, Wolverine asked, "So, how do we put this to rest?" They realized their backup wasn't coming and decided to handle it themselves. She-Hulk asked, "How do you heal from any wound?" Wolverine replied, "Yeah, what about the mother of all wounds? Something so nasty it'll take hours." She-Hulk questioned, "And how do we do that?" Wolverine smirked. 2 words, fastball special. As She-Hulk lifted Wolverine, he teased, "You know how it's done." She-Hulk retorted, "I've seen it before. Usually with a guy, right?" Wolverine nodded. "Yeah, why?" She-Hulk quipped, "Got a firm little butt there. You must hit the gym." Wolverine chuckled, First rule about the fastball special: don't talk about the fastball special. Now do it. As she threw him, She-Hulk warned, "All right, but watch out. It's one thing when Colossus does it, another when a Hulk does." Wolverine flew towards the Wendigo, passing through it and creating a massive hole in its chest. He extracted its heart with his claws as the Wendigo fell. "That should slow the big furball down." She-Hulk added, "Maybe longer now that his heart's out of it." They exchanged a smile as S.H.I.E.L.D. contained the Wendigo. Wolverine convinced Talisman they knew what they were doing. She-Hulk turned to him and joked, "Now that things are cooling off, want to grab a brew or something?" Wolverine declined, "Nah, got better things than chasing after Juggernaut's leftovers." She-Hulk was shocked. "What? I didn't slept with Juggernaut. Why does everyone keep saying that?" In conclusion, the team-up of Wolverine and She-Hulk against the Wendigo epitomizes the essence of superhero storytelling, a thrilling blend of action-packed heroics, sharp-witted banter, and the forging of unexpected alliances. Their adventure not only entertains with its exhilarating sequences and witty dialogue but also underscores the profound importance of camaraderie and mutual respect in overcoming formidable challenges. Wolverine's rugged heroism shines as he confronts the monstrous Wendigo with relentless determination, wielding his adamantium claws with lethal precision. Alongside him, She-Hulk's playful yet formidable presence injects a dynamic energy into their partnership, her raw power and resilient spirit adding depth to their collaboration. Their journey showcases that true heroism extends beyond individual prowess. It thrives in the bonds of friendship and cooperation forged in the crucible of battle. Together, they exemplify that the strongest alliances are often the most unexpected yet profoundly impactful, resonating deeply with audiences and celebrating the enduring appeal of Marvel's iconic characters. Did you like this story? Please tell me in the comments, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. And you can watch the story of how Iron Man thought he could defeat Odin when the whole population of Paris was converted into stones and Iron Man fought Odin. And you can also watch these 3-part series of Amazing Justice League and the Avengers collaboration. Thank you.